The rain pounded the cornice as if trying to tap out a Morse code. Victor leaned against the cold glass, watching the shadow in the apartment across the street move rhythmically, as if winding up an old gramophone. Suddenly the light went out. Only the orange glare of a street lamp slid across the owl's figure, and it seemed to him that the wings trembled. Hallucinations, hissed an inner voice, but his fingers were already clutching the binoculars that had been lying around in the toolbox. Through the lenses he saw an open book lay on the table by the window. Crime and Punishment in a tattered binding. Lyudmila reread it every autumn, calling it an inoculation against madness. But Lyudmila was in the hospital, or was she? He remembered on the day she was taken away in an ambulance, a nurse came into the ward with the same mole above. Her lip as Lena's. The phone in his pocket vibrated. An unknown number. Come down to the yard. Right now. The woman's voice broke off. Victor pulled on a leather jacket that smelled of tobacco and gunpowder, a gift from his father for his coming of age. In the elevator, which still worked at night, a flashing light was on, illuminating the graffiti. Zimin is a traitor. Someone knew, or wanted him to believe that they knew. In the yard, under a maple tree whose roots had bulged the asphalt, stood a woman, a hooded cloak, hands in black gloves. You've got the wrong door, baby, Victor began, but she turned around abruptly. Under the hood was Lena's face, or rather, that's what it would have looked like if she had lived to be 40. They want to erase us both, the stranger whispered. But I hid the film where you hid candy from your father. My heart sank. In the old garage behind the house, under the tiles with a crack in the shape of a cross, there was a hiding place. There, 10-year-old Vitya put candy wrappers from Mishka in the north and letters from his mother, whom he did not remember. When his father got drunk, the boy read them out loud, imagining that she was somewhere behind the wall. Why should I believe you? He asked, but the woman was already dissolving in the rain like a blotter. Only a whisper remained. They changed the autopsy report. Returning to the apartment, Victor pulled a suitcase with tools from under the bed. A crowbar, a flashlight, gloves, all that remained from an honest service. The garage greeted him with the creaking of rusty hinges. The tile gave in on the third blow. In the hiding place, in addition to the children's treasures, there was an envelope with the inscription, "To Vitenka," and a VHS cassette. On the label was the seal of Children's Clinic number 3. The film projector buzzed like an angry wasp. Images began to jump across the screen. 1992, him, aged 7, sitting in a doctor's office. False memory syndrome, a male voice says off-screen. We erased the incident with my sister. Repeat the procedure every 5 years. Suddenly the image jerked. A recording from the workshop in 2014 appeared. He in uniform drops a gun. A girl, Lena, his mother, hugs him, whispering, "It's not your fault. It wasn't a box of money. It was a coffin." The noise from the street made him jump. Victor looked out the window. A black sedan was crushing garbage cans. 2 people in leather jackets got out of the car. One was carrying a grinder. Looking for a cassette flashed through his mind. He put the tape in his pocket and went down into the basement through a hatch in the floor. The pipes hissed like snakes, but behind them was a passage to the sewer. Here, at the age of 6, he hid from his father. Here he found a dead pigeon with a note, "Keep quiet or she will die." Then he thought it was about his mother. On the surface at the river dock, Viktor called Kораблев. "Have you seen the body?" the investigator asked. "Yes, but it wasn't me." "I know," Kораблев interrupted. "Your fingerprints are everywhere, but Lyudmila's DNA is on the knife, and she's in a coma. Come, or they'll put you on the wanted list." The receiver beeped. The sedan pulled out of the alley. Viktor threw the phone into the water. It looked like the fact detective was about to become the main suspect. The Rasvet market woke up before the sun. Stalls with sauerkraut and bundles of onions stretched along rusty garages where nails and bolts had once been sold. Now Chinese thermos mugs and used batteries ruled the roost. Viktor walked past, fiddling with the key to the station storage locker in his pocket, the only place without cameras. Just like when I was a kid, he thought. His father, having returned from the war, hid presents there, a doll for Lena, a book about Gulliver. But after her death, the lock on the locker had rusted solid. The smell of roasted sunflower seeds mixed with the stench from the nearby garbage dump. An old woman in a headscarf embroidered with cornflowers sat by a stall with grandfather's watches, an exact copy of the one his mother had worn. "Can I fix it?" Viktor handed her an onion-shaped watch, a gift from Lyudmila for their first anniversary. The old woman clicked the lid and took out a magnifying glass. "The spring snapped, my dear, like some people's consciences." Inside, among the gears, a microfilm gleamed. "But this isn't mine," she muttered, poking at a capsule thinner than a hair. The station greeted him with the echo of loudspeakers. Storage. Lockard A-17 creaked, as if reluctantly. Inside was a box from under his father's boots. The paper, soaked in shoe polish, preserved letters. Not from his mother, but from a doctor from Polyclinic number 3. Protocol Tour 12. Patient V. Zimin demonstrates false memories of his sister's death. Isolation from subject Lena Zimina recommended. On the back was a child's drawing. A house with a chimney from which black smoke poured. The caption, "Daddy burns monsters." The rumble came from behind. 2 men in street cleaners' uniforms were throwing trash into a bin. One had a tattoo on his neck, a snake devouring a token. Viktor shoved the box under his jacket and turned into the alley where Glukov had once taught him to keep an eye on his clients. "Remember, Zimin," he said, blowing smoke rings. "The truth is what stays in your pockets. Everything else is fairy tales for fools." The entrance to building number 14 smelled of cabbage soup and hopelessness. Lena's apartment was on the 5th floor. The door had a wax seal. "Do not enter. Quarantine." But the seal was torn. There were dirty boot prints in the hallway. There was a calendar from 1992 hanging on the wall. The date was marked December 14th, the day Lena died. The bedroom retains the spirit of a teenage girl, lace curtains, a teddy bear on the dresser. In the drawer is an album of clippings, an article from Pionerskaya, Pravda, a schoolgirl saved a puppy from under the ice. Photo, Lena, 12, with a bandaged arm. In the background is her father, smoking in the shade. His face is crossed out. Behind the wardrobe there was a hole in the wall. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, a diary. The first entry, "Dad said that. Vitya would never know. But I spied on him crying in the garage." The pages ended on 12/14/1992. The doorbell rang, making him jump. Through the peephole, a woman in a nurse's uniform, that same mole above her lip. "Open up, we're cleaning." The voice rang like a scalpel. Victor pressed the notebook to his chest and stepped toward the window. The fire escape was hanging on one hinge. Like in '92, flashed through his mind. He had escaped from the hospital along it when he heard the doctor telling his father, "The girl won't survive, but we can make her different." On the street, around the corner, a Volga the color of wet asphalt was waiting. An old woman from the market was at the wheel. "Get in," she said hoarsely. "I'll show you where the dolls are hiding." Psychiatric Hospital Number 3 stood on the outskirts like a godforsaken suitcase. Its walls, once white, now resembled a smoker's teeth, yellow with black holes for windows. The old woman stopped the Volga at the gates, entwined with barbed wire. From the time of Afghanistan. "They rebuilt it here," she said, wiping the headlights with a handkerchief, "so that she would forget. So that you would forget." Victor got out without asking who she was. His legs carried him along the alley where the birches creaked with their bony toes. The letter from the box was burning in his pocket. Patient L. Zimina. Diagnosis: multiple identity syndrome. Suppression of the dominant personality is recommended. Signed, Dr. Krutov, the same one who saw patients at the clinic in 1992. The admissions department smelled of bleach and fear. On the wall was a clock with a stopped hand. 1412, the date on the tear-off calendar, December 14th. Symbolic, thought Victor, looking at the nurse behind the glass. That same mole above her lip. "Who are you here to see?" she asked without looking. "To see Krutov. He died. Yesterday," the nurse replied, putting metal into her voice. But her fingers trembled as she held out the pass. Morgue, basement. The elevator creaked like a cart with a corpse, minus the third floor. The door opened into a corridor lit by dim lamps. On the floor were traces of rolling hearses. At the end was a room with a sign saying, "Archive. Do not enter." Inside it smelled of leather and dust. Shelves of folders stretched into the darkness. Victor found file number 12 to 1992. A photo of Lena at age 14. Pale face, wide eyes. Diagnosis: paranoid episodes. Claims that her brother is a double. Replaced in 1986. A note in red: patient is dangerous. Created a phantom of Victor to suppress trauma. On the back, there is a drawing. 2 children in a room with bars. The caption: "We played hide and seek, but Dad hid Vitya forever." Suddenly, the light went out. Footsteps. Hoarse breathing. Victor pressed himself against the shelf, feeling for a lighter in his pocket. The fire snatched a face from the darkness, his own, but with a scar instead of an eyebrow. "Hello, twin," his double hissed, grabbing him by the throat. The madness of Lenin's drawings burned in his eyes. The struggle was short. A strange hand found the badge on his neck, and the double howled, "She said you'd come," before collapsing, twitching in a fit. In his pocket was the key to Krutov's office. The office retains an aura of madness. On the table is a doll with Lena's porcelain face. In the stomach is a compartment with film. On the wall is a quote from Dostoevsky: "Suffering is the only cause of consciousness." The projector creaked. Black and white footage, the room with Gazelle's mirror. Behind him, Lena, 14, in a hospital gown. Krutov enters. "Where is your brother?" "He's not here. He died when Dad burned down our house." "That's not true. Victor is alive. He has become different." Lena screamed, banging her head against the glass. "You're lying. Vitya is hiding inside me." The scene changed. 2014. A workshop. Victor in uniform approaches a box. Inside is not money, but a doll on fire. Krutov's voiceover. "She chose you so that you would bear her pain." A lullaby began to play from the speakers, the same one that Lena's mother had sung. Victor closed his eyes, and the memory struck him like a blow. 92. The night after his sister's death. His father takes him to the garage. In the corner is a box of dolls. "Choose," he says, smelling of vodka and grief. "The one that looks like Lena will live inside you. We'll burn the rest." Little Vitya points to the doll in the blue dress. His father sets the rest on fire. "Now you'll remember for both," he cries, hugging his son for the first time in years. Suddenly the film broke. On the screen was himself, here and now. "You're almost there," his voice said from the screen. "But to find it, become me." The phone in my pocket vibrated. Lyudmila, or rather her number. "Victor," a whisper. They opened my brain. I saw our daughter. She's alive. A siren wailed outside. A black sedan pulled into the area. Victor stuffed the doll into his bag and ran toward the exit. In the tunnel behind the morgue, where corpses were once taken away, he came across a wall of children's drawings. All of them had the same plot. A boy and a girl running from a fire. The last one had the inscription, "Daddy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to deceive you." The dacha where Lyudmila's call led him stood on the edge of a pine forest as if ashamed of its decline. The windows were boarded up with plywood. The porch was lopsided like an old drunkard, and nettles were rampant in the front garden, guardians of forgotten secrets. Victor pushed the gate, and it crunched with bones as if warning, "Go away." But he could already see the tracks. Fresh Volga tires in the mud, a piece of tape from a doll on the steps. The same one he had found in Krutov's office. Under the floorboard in the bedroom where Lena had once slept, there was an envelope with baby curls, white, like Lyudmila's. Attached was a certificate from the maternity hospital. Zimina Anna, 12/14/2014, weight 2,800. The date coincided with the day of Operation Mockingbird. "A daughter," he whispered, clutching the paper. But how? After the miscarriage, Lyudmila couldn't, or had she been lying all this time? The shed, where his father kept firewood, smelled of gasoline and memory. On the wall was a scythe covered in rust. Victor tugged at it, and a hidden door creaked open. Inside was a room with equipment from the 90s, monitors, a reel-to-reel tape recorder, a stand with photos. Lena at 20, alive, with a child in her arms. A girl. Anya. He read on the back. The tape recorder hissed. The father's voice. "Forgive me, Vitka. Lena is not dead. We rewrote her to save her from them. But now they have found her. And you." The recording was interrupted by a gunshot. Dogs started barking outside. Victor looked out through the crack. A black sedan was slowing. Down at the gate, two people got out of the car. A man in glasses and a woman with a mole above her lip. "Sanitization," he grinned, grabbing his scythe. The chase through the forest was short. The sheath hit his back and he fell into the stream where he had once caught tadpoles with Lena. The water turned pink. "Where's the film?" The woman pressed her heel to his wound. "In my father's grave," he breathed, remembering how he had hidden candy wrappers there as a child. They left him to bleed, but the old woman from the market, as if waiting in the bushes, pulled him out onto the path. "She's alive," she whispered, bandaging the wound with a handkerchief. "You're Anya. They raised her as a weapon against you." At night, making his way through the cemetery, Viktor found his father's grave dug up. In the coffin, instead of bones, there was a hard drive labeled Mockingbird 2.0. In the local internet club, smelling of cheap coffee and sweat, he launched the file. On the screen, Anya, 10 years old, sitting in a room with a gazelle mirror. "Daddy," she says, looking into the camera, "if you can see this, I'm already dead. They taught me to hate you, but I remember our house and the night you burned the doll instead of me." The video changed to a recording from surveillance cameras. Today, Viktor at the dacha. In the corner of the frame is Lyudmila, healthy, leading a girl by the hand. "Mom." He slammed his fist on the table, breaking the keyboard. When he went outside, he saw the same doll in the blue dress on a bench. In her hand was a note. "Meet by the river, where you buried your conscience." The Black River had always been a silent witness. Here, under the cliff, where the wind threw autumn leaves like unwanted letters, Viktor had once buried a token, the very one with his father's engraving. Now the water, dark with oil stains, licked the shore, as if hurrying it. On the sand, next to a rusty boat, lay a doll in a blue dress. Her porcelain hand pointed to a light in the distance, to the side where the Rasvet pioneer camp had stood in Soviet times. Now the ruins of buildings stuck out like broken teeth. He walked, not feeling the wound on his back. 2 objects were burning in his pocket: a flash drive with Mockingbird data and Anya's child's bracelet, the one he had found in his father's ruined grave. "Weave me a wreath of mud," Lena had once sung, wandering barefoot along the sandbank. Now her voice rang in his head, mixing with the roar of the motor. A black boat with darkened headlights was rocking at the pier. Anya was standing on the deck, 10 years old, but her eyes were old, like Krutov's. In her hands was a tablet with a flickering map. "They're waiting," she said without turning around. "If you give them the file, Mom will survive." "Mother." Lyudmila sat in the hold, chained to a pipe. Her face, cut with wrinkles of fear, had become alien. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "They took her when I was in a coma. They said you killed Lena." Viktor took a step toward his daughter, but Anya pressed a button. The tablet screen exploded with holograms, shots of his life, bribes, fake reports, the girl's face in the shop. "You're a mistake," Anya said. "I was created to fix it." "Lie." He wheezed, but his fingers reached for the flash drive on their own. Suddenly a shadow emerged from the water. The old woman from the market, wet as a river spirit, grabbed Anya by the hand. "Don't believe them, my child," she screamed. "They erased Lena to insert you like a battery." The girl froze. Her eyes flickered, momentarily becoming childish. "It's true. It burns," she whispered, taking a beetle lighter out of her pocket, just like Lena's. A flash lit up the hold. Lyudmila, having torn off the chain, rushed to Anya. "My girl," but there was a strange tone in her voice. Viktor realized it was not Lyudmila. It was she, Lena, whose consciousness was transplanted into his wife's body after the accident. The old woman's grip weakened. Anya broke free and ran along the shore toward the ruins of dawn. Viktor followed her. The wind carried fragments of voices. Vitya, catch. 8-year-old Lena throws him a ball. Son, don't look back. His father pushes him into the saving darkness of the burning workshop. In the camp assembly hall, where Lenin's portrait had once hung, a projector screen now gaped. Anya entered the code from the flash drive. The Mockingbird data began to creep onto the internet. Now everyone will see what a monster you are, she said, but her voice was trembling with uncertainty. No, Viktor interrupted. They'll see how they turned us into monsters. He took out the bracelet. Inside, under the rhinestones, was a chip, the same one that the old woman had slipped him at the market. These are your real memories. Look. The images on the wall came to life. 2014, Lena alive, hides newborn Anya in an orphanage. She must forget, otherwise they will burn her like me. Anya fell to her knees. Tears flowed from her eyes, washing away the digital veil. Daddy! For the first time, like a child, the shot rang out from behind. Lyudmila Lena stood in the doorway with her father's Makarov. I was saving her, she sobbed. It's better to be dead than... The bullet hit the projector. Fire engulfed the screen, crawled along the curtains. Viktor pushed Anya out the window, then jumped in himself. The fall was softened by an old mattress against the wall. They ran along the river, holding hands. Behind them, the Mockingbird servers exploded, lighting up the sky with green flames. An old woman stood on the bridge. You're free now, she nodded, dissolving into smoke. In the morning, the news reported an explosion at an abandoned facility. One person killed was a woman, her identity unknown. Viktor, looking at Anya sleeping in the monastery shelter, burned the flash drive in a candle flame. Sleep, daughter, we'll start all over again. But he left the bracelet in his pocket forever. And in the river, under a layer of silt, his father's token was still waiting for its moment.